big names. I just hope that NFL officials are planning to protect Johnny Manziel a little bit better than they've protected Brian Hoyer, because unlike Brian Hoyer, Johnny Manziel's got a great big old target on his back, and people are just licking their chops at the opportunity to take him out after a throw. So, I'm just anticipating that even before it happens, that Bengals and Steelers and everybody else the rest of the way and on into next year are going to be just salivating at the chance to rip this guy
Dan,
and
quick,
knock him flat, knock him into the middle next week.
I'm glad you brought that up.
I'm hopeful the officials are ready for that and are going to try to protect the guy, because he could get snapped in half. Let's face it.
No, I'm glad you brought that up, because I'll jump right in with what you're saying. I was talking to a friend last night who was going back and watching the game on DVR. You just made me think of this, and he actually was talking about the line, because I was going, hey, they're going with this Seymour. It's the fourth center of the season, and they say he graded out better than anybody since Mac got hurt. And my friend's like, well, maybe if they're grading on the whole game, that may be true, but I can show you a dozen plays that I keep rewinding on this DVR where guys are just blowing up through the middle of the Browns offensive line to get at Hoyer the other day. And I'm not saying that he was under siege all game. We've moved on from that conversation. Brian Hoyer's on the bench. I'm not going to beat a dead horse into the ground, but you're right about that, and that is something. I'm telling you, there is a large, I would say easily, a large percentage of the fan base that's gotten a hold of me that said, I don't care about Brian Hoyer one lick, but he's going to be the Browns quarterback again this season because they're going to break Johnny in half. And I think that is the biggest pause that I have in anything is that aspect of it right there. But that's the risk of that kind of guy, and we already knew that, which is part of why we didn't want that kind of guy. So that's all the risk that's already been inherited. There's nothing else we can say about that, and it's either going to happen or it's not. You just got to go out there and see.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm not sure that Hoyer took any particular shots the other day that were against the rules or late or vicious. But I just saw the guy picking himself up off the ground all day, sometimes more slowly than others, and obviously got his bell rung many times. And he's a tough guy. He's never whined. I think one of the reasons he doesn't get those calls is that he bounces back up and doesn't go pleading his case to the referee.
Was it you?
You maybe wish he had done it a little bit more. But I just foresee bad things happening.
Was it you, Dan, on Monday? No, what you're saying. Was it you or was it somebody yesterday that brought up that they had heard the reports going around that perhaps, in addition to everything else, Brian Hoyer had been concussed in the last couple of weeks from exactly what you said, and that may have also, played a part in the just worsening of decision making on top of the other things that were already in play. And I said I had no idea. I had not heard anything of that, but I wouldn't be surprised. As a matter of fact, what was it? They mentioned the shot a couple of weeks ago. Was it Houston when Cushing just absolutely annihilated him and he almost came out of the game?
That was vicious, right. and deserved a penalty and didn't get one. Yeah.
Well, so and again,
no,
nobody's making
excuses.
But go ahead.
Yeah, it was not me that was talking about the concussion thing, but it certainly is understandable and plausible that maybe not something that had played a factor in the decision to sit him down, but may have played a factor in his ineffectiveness or judgment, decision making, whatever you want to call it. Speculation, but plausible speculation.
Because there was more than just, and this is my last thing on Hoyer, but there was more than just, he is what he is. Something changed, and you can say defenses change. It's not just that, because he had windows of success even within the other windows as well. There was something else different. What people had always talked about was not bad decision-making. Accuracy was always 50-50, but it was the decision-making and that type of thing. And that changed in the last month or so. Part of it's the pressure. Part of it is so on and so forth. But I absolutely wouldn't be surprised if after this season's over, if that doesn't also come out as perhaps having been just another of many of the factors in all of this. Regardless,
could be.
It's done. You know what I mean?
We're just hoping that Johnny's practicing the hook slide and that he is smart. Now, we saw Johnny in his last, his 2 years of college. We saw him taking a lot of shots from great big Alabama players and getting sacked, and he has a habit of, he bounces right back up. But these guys are going to be out looking for him, headhunting, if you will. I'm utterly convinced of that. And, just because he is who he is and he invites it, I think they're going to try to be delivering it on Sunday.
And the other point that we have to stress, and it's where I started this show, it was the last line of Mike Pettine's statement about switching the quarterbacks, and it's the one that's being ignored the most because, of course, you can't make any excuses for Brian Hoyer. You can't. The entire offense was Brian Hoyer's fault. Bull, and the Browns know that, and Mike Pettine knows that. If the rest of these players don't play better around him, run better routes, pick up better blocks, do their job better than they've done in the last month around Brian Hoyer, then Johnny Manziel will not only not be successful, but he will get injured as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. I did not hear him say that, but he's absolutely right. And he's
it was his final
setting the
statement,
table to warn people for to what to expect him.
His final statement, real quick, follow up on this. You hear it. He said, Johnny worked very hard to earn this opportunity, but it will be very important for every member of the offense to elevate their play in order for us to obtain our desired result, which is coach speak for, just like I told you on Monday, everybody played like crap, and it exaggerated the bad play of the quarterback. Same thing here. Everybody's got to step up their game, plain and simple, because there is no white horse left. There is no Johnny on the bench now. Now you look at the bench, you got the guy who you just sat there. So there's no spark. There's no extra hope for next week. They have to play better to give Johnny the chance to be whatever he's going to be able to be.
Yeah, and I think we'll see Johnny, making some throws maybe that Brian Hoyer hasn't been making for the last month.
I hope so.
And we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully, if he can extend the play, that's the hope. And once he does extend the play, and he's out in the open field, that he has a good chance to get his butt on the ground.
I don't even care about all that. Just hit Taylor Gabriel. Just hit him the other day, and we win the game. Just hit the ones that are open. I don't care about the trick plays. I don't need you to do a 360 in the backfield like you did in college and try to run away from 18 guys. That's all icing on the cake. Just hit the open guys and don't turn the ball over, and I'll take it. I'll take that, and we'll grow from there. You know what I mean? We'll grow from there. Just hit the open guys and don't turn it over to the guys in the other jerseys.
Yeah, I'm with you. I keep it simple, and the KISS program, the Keep It Simple Stupid program.
You know it.
And run the offense and get on the ground when those big guys are coming at you.
And it's interesting, too, coming against the Bengals, because on the Browns level alone, that does put a little bit of intrigue, too. If you are going to start a legend, that's a good place to do it in the division. I was looking, too, the Browns had put out on their website some of the other rookie quarterbacks over the last few years and what they did in their initial performance here. Looking through some of these, Cam Newton, first game was against the Cardinals in the first week of 2011. He went 24 of 37 for 422 yards, a couple touchdowns, and a pick. RG3's first game, 19 of 26, 320 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, and 42 yards rushing as they defeated the New Orleans Saints in 2012. Russell Wilson, a much lesser statistical day. Cardinals held him in check pretty well. So keep that in mind. Russell Wilson, a lot of people compare skill sets to John Manzel. 18 of 34, 153 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick in his first game. He played a very, very tough Arizona defense that day. Absolutely. Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, well, I was going to say one of the things
Go ahead.
I was going to say one of the things that it strikes me as you read off that list was that I'm sure Carolina Panthers and the Washington Redskins would be more than happy to have that first game line back again. Any game this year, because they haven't seen anything like that kind of productivity from either Cam Newton or RG3 probably ever since those opening games.
Absolutely. I mean, think about it. That first Carolina team with Cam Newton was 12-4, and then it was all downhill from there. And that was something I mentioned earlier in the show, the league as a whole. Now, Russell Wilson, to me, is an anomaly because he he is just a stud player. But the league as a whole has trended towards defending these quarterbacks better, as we've seen the windows of opportunity closing here for RG3 and Cam Newton and those guys. They can still get off from time to time, but the league as a whole has figured out better ways to contain those guys. So Johnny Manziel's coming in a few years late on the back end of that hot read option type new extension of offense. So he's got that disadvantage that the league is already kind of caught up to that style a bit as he's getting rolling.
That's true, and like you talked about with John, at least for this first week, we've got the element of surprise working in his favor because they don't know what he's going to do and how he's going to do it. I think Manzel has the capability, and he looks like he has the arm to function as a drop back passer in the NFL, even with his stature situation. But you don't know whether what Shanahan has in mind for him, but you're right that the NFL adjusts to everything. They adjust to everybody. But you're right, they certainly have made the adjustments and spread it out and been able to deal better with the Russell Wilsons of the world and the mobile quarterbacks. And you still see, you can say that as a rule you have to be mobile and be able to move around and be mobile in the NFL to succeed. And then you look at guys like Peyton Manning and Tom Brady who really don't do that as being at the very top of the game. So there's exceptions to every rule. But I sure would prefer to have a mobile quarterback if I'm designing my, building my NFL team from the ground up. You certainly want a guy that's not quite as statuesque as a Peyton Manning or a Tom Brady.
No doubt. Looking at some of this year's quarterbacks that are also in the class of John Manzel here. Teddy Bridgewater's first start in Week 4 came against the Falcons. We saw that defense, and it was a good one for him to start against. 19 of 30, 317 yards in a big blowout victory for the Vikings. Derek Carr, he started Week 1 against the Jets. They lost, but he went 20 of 32, only 151 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, and as we've seen, he's really grown well. 17 touchdowns, only 11 picks with that offense. Blake Bortles, his first game, 29 of 37, 254 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks. And then there's perhaps one of the worst Cleveland Browns quarterback debuts in history, Brandon Wheaton. So for those of you who don't like Manzel and go, well, can it be worse? It can. Brandon Wheaton, 12 of 30. I was there for this one. 12 of 35, 118 yards, no touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and he got stuck under the flag as the Browns found a way to give away a victory, 17-16 against the Eagles. That was just a debacle from beginning to end, and we all know how that ended up there. But so
that
there's
was
a wide range.
That was a brutal game. That was a brutal
game.
You were
there.
That finished up right in front of me down there in the dog pound end. The Eagles scored a touchdown in the final seconds. One play after an interception went right through the hands of Craig Robertson. And I remember it like it was yesterday. But yeah, that was an ugly one, and I didn't even see the flag incident until I got home and watched the tape of it. But a day that shall live in infamy, as they say.
That was when T. Rich knocked the helmet off, and it was all downhill from there, man. I remember that people were like, "Yeah, that's why we drafted him where we drafted him." Yeah, well, how's that working out for you now? But he knocked that helmet off, and it was all downhill. That was the highlight for T. Rich.
And some people forget that when we got rid of T. Rich, that's the pick that ended up being Johnny Manziel.
Yes, it is. Absolutely is, man. So there's a small world.
That's right.
As it all circles around, it's a small world. You guys are listening to the Sports Fix. J-Rock, Dan Wismar doing our thing, talking about Johnny Manziel and the Browns making the decision to start him this weekend against the Cincinnati Bengals. So, I mean, I guess there's really no point in any of us saying what we think is going to happen this weekend because we don't know. It will be energy. There is no book on Manziel here, so that should give the Browns a bit of the element of surprise. As we talked about, it's going to be a hell of a lot of fun. And I cannot wait to see. I can't wait to see what happens. Browns-Bengals always has a soft spot for me anyway, just like Browns and Steelers does, So from that aspect of it, I'm fired up. And I mentioned earlier in the week, a lot of Browns players have made their first impressions with Browns fans against the Bengals. That's always one of the big ones. If you're going to come up big